the warring parties in Sudan have agreed to take steps to increase humanitarian access in Khartoum. This comes out of the peace talks organized by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Intergovernmental Authority Development, the African Union and the United States. Tensions are high in Sudan after war broke out between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, in April. The area of West Darfur, which had previously been under the control of the Sudanese military, was recently captured by the RSF. People fleeing to Chad have reported a new surge in ethnically driven killings in the region as the RSF took over the main army base in the state capital. All right, now let's get the very latest from our correspondent Naba Mohiedeen in Khartoum in Sudan. Naba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, we know, of course, that the fighting between the Sudan armed forces as well as the paramilitary counterpart, the Rapid Support Forces, is continuing in the Sudanese capital just recently. I mean, this is more than 6 months of fighting. Just bring us up to speed in terms of what is currently happening on the ground in Khartoum.
Actually, in Khartoum right now, while I'm talking to you, there is fierce clashes in northern Durman, which is one of the main cities that make up the greater capital Khartoum. There is fierce clashes between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. Rapid Support Forces paramilitary militia are trying to control some parts of Durman because it's a strategic town for them, as it links western Sudan that they recently controlled to Khartoum. So they want to secure routes for them to supply their soldiers, to to boost their soldiers and troops. So there is fierce clashes in Durman city, and people are suffering because of fierce clashes. Just 3 days ago there was a massacre. 34 people got killed, and every day there is a new number of people got injured and killed because of the fierce clashes. There is also fierce clashes in some parts of Darfur and West Kordofan because RSF are apparently trying to take or to make new grounds for them, new winnings by controlling some parts of Darfur and turn it into a new war torn, just like the war in 2003. So the situation is really bad in Khartoum. Clashes continue, humanitarian situation is declining and deteriorating every day, and people are still fleeing from Khartoum and Darfur and living under very bad situation amid outbreak of diseases and a collapse of health system.
And nobody wants to see what happened between 2003 and 2005, as you say. So let's talk now about the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, Naba. You know, more than 9,000 people have been killed so far, we understand, and about 5.6 million people displaced since April. The warring parties, as we've said in the intro, have now agreed to take steps to increase humanitarian access. Just talk to us about that process.
Actually, yes, humanitarian situation is really bad, not only in Khartoum, but all over the country, because health system right now is 100% collapse. There is outbreaks of diseases, there is shortages of medicine and inaccessibility of health services. So yes, 5.6 million people have been displaced since the war. 1.2 of them crossed to neighboring countries, and 4.6 are inside Sudan. While I'm speaking to you right now, I see a lot of families here in the Red Sea. They are living out in the open. They don't have even shelters or camps to stay in. So the situation is really bad. There is a lot of issues regarding the humanitarian situation. There is outbreaks of diseases like cholera, malaria, and malnutrition for children that killed more than 1,200 people. So right now, with the recent agreement in Jeddah between RSF and the Sudanese military to open humanitarian corridors for people in war zone areas, it will help ease the situation. But we are not sure whether the two sides will adhere the agreement or it will collapse again, because we saw a lot of promises in the past last 7 months to ease the situation and open humanitarian corridors, but it was not implemented. So right now Sudanese people are very hopeful that this time the agreement will hold and make a real ease to people's life and people suffering, especially in war zone areas.
Now, Naba, of course, we know that this particular area, as we continue to talk about the humanitarian aid, has been receiving aid even before this war. What kind of impact would it make now to receive it, and the scale of it? I mean, we know, of course, in the area that is particularly, feeling the pinch of this war, as you say, disease has broken out. What kind of impact will it make now, and also the scale of the humanitarian aid that is needed in the areas that you've been to, but also throughout the country? If you can just paint the picture in terms of the need on the ground.
Actually, the need is really big, and there was a lot of aid provided by countries and friends of Sudan, and there was aid provided by a lot of countries, Arab countries and Western countries. But unfortunately, the need is bigger than the required aid, because there is a lot of obstacles regarding the aid. There is logistic obstacles regarding delivering the aid to war zone areas like Khartoum, Darfur, and Kordofan. Also, there is shortages of life-saving assistance like medicine, maternity needs for women and for children. So right now the aid is really short, and there is also mismanagement and corruption. A lot of aid was delivered to Sudan, but it was not distributed to people in need, especially in Khartoum and in Darfur. And we saw a lot of aid materials and food assistance was actually sold in the market. So the issues of aid is it's short. It doesn't cover the need of people. There is logistic issues regarding delivering it because of the fierce clashes, and also corruption and mismanagement from Sudan's side, and Sudan's government is hindering delivery of the aid. So people are suffering. There is shortages of water, food, medicine everywhere, and it's not only because of the aid, but because of mismanagement and corruption. And recently UN said by the end of this year they will need another $1 billion in order to assist people in need, not only in Khartoum or Darfur, but also in the countries that host a big number of Sudanese, like South Sudan and Egypt. So the situation is really dire, it's really sad, and there is no solution but negotiations and opening humanitarian corridors and raise aid and assistance to Sudan.
Naba, as we wrap up our interview, let's talk then about those negotiations. We understand, of course, that warring parties have resumed negotiations in Saudi Arabia aimed at ending this war. Talk to us about which countries are involved in these negotiations and how that is looking like at the moment.
Actually, right now the negotiations are led by Saudi Arabia and the United States. Other countries and blocs, many African countries and African blocs like IGAD are supporting the negotiations and the process in Jeddah. But right now it's led by Saudi Arabia and the United States. The first phase of negotiation just ended, and the facilitators said that the two warring factions just agreed on putting principles to build the trust or confidence between the two sides, but any speech about ceasefire or stopping the hostilities is postponed because the two warring factions need to build the trust and confidence. Firstly, the two sides conditioned some conditions in order to sit directly on tables, so now it's indirect talks. So Saudi Arabia and United States and other African countries are supporting the negotiations, but till now it's really slow and it's not make tangible effects on the ground, because as I told you, right now there is fierce clashes in Darfur and in Khartoum, but we are so hopeful that the second round will melt the ice and make a breakthrough to put Sudan back on the right track and help Sudanese people get to their normal life.
Naba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. Of course, that was Naba Mohiedeen coming to us live there from Khartoum, just giving us the very latest in terms of that crisis.